Hello, everybody. Well, welcome to our very first podcast with the Starry Panel. My name is Starry, and here are my other members of the team. Introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Will.
I'm Anissa from the UK.
I'm Michael. I guess I'll be going by Sir Sawetnik.
I'm Ethan.
And I'm Andrew.
All right, cool. So, our very first topic that we want to discuss about today is something that is affecting everybody in the USA. Well, not just the USA, it's a pandemic, frankly, that affects the entire world. It's the coronavirus. That has, of course, impacted each of our lives, and we're here to talk about that. So, my story, personally, with the coronavirus is my parents actually own a restaurant. Underneath the stay-at-home order that our state has instituted, we are only allowed to do carry-out, as we are an essential business. So basically, we cannot have customers sit down in the bar or the dining room because that would mean that they would congregate in a certain area. So all of these efforts are, of course, to promote social distancing. And so we have been relying these past 2 weeks on carryouts alone. And I just want to say that although that is a form of government intervention, I do believe that it is very necessary because I think that as businesses, we should do everything we can to cooperate in a time of uncertainty. As for us personally, we just really want to say, first of all, from my family, I want to say that we are very grateful to our customers for continuing to come out and to support us and to order from us. And we are just really happy just to be able to stay open and to serve meals for everybody. So it is very truly heartwarming to see the unity and the generosity from people in the community in a time where, frankly, unity is essential, I think.
It's very good to hear. Do you see a lot of regulars come in?
Yeah, we've seen a lot of regulars. We've also seen a lot of new people call in, which is strange, but I think it's probably because they never really had the chance to just try us out, and now that they're online, like looking, exploring all the different places that are around, they figured that, we have nothing better to do, so perhaps we should try new things, while we're at it. I mean, everybody's dying to get out of the house, let's be honest.
Oh yeah,
Oh
for
yeah.
sure.
Oh yeah. It was so nice yesterday, and I just couldn't help it. It was like 50 degrees here. I went out on a bike ride for like a half hour. I would have felt bad to stay inside all day.
Yeah? What did you do outside?
I just went on a bike ride just around the campus. Apparently, a lot of other people thought that was a good idea too. So especially along the trails along the lakes, I was trying my best to stay cautious, and like if someone was going if I was going one way, if someone was going the opposite way, I was like just trying to hold my breath to make sure I didn't catch.
Sir Sawetnik, you actually go to Notre Dame, so you're quite the brainiac.
That's very nice of you. I think it's important to clarify that there's a difference between being educated and being smart, and
For sure. But you're both, so, I mean...
most days. Yeah, and it's just been kind of weird, because just, like, around St. Patrick's Day was kind of like when the university gave the official order to get all the undergrads to move off campus, and and it was just kind of like a little bit by bit, so it was, spring break was the week before that, and they said, hey, if you are going home for spring break or anything, stay there, don't return to campus. And then they pretty much had everybody move out by St. Patrick's Day, so just that was weird. And now not just my classes, everybody's classes are online now.
Yeah, I have to say, I've been doing online courses for a good while now, and I have to say that everybody is asking me for advice on my perspective on how it is, because I guess everybody's finally doing what I'm doing and jumping on the train, because it's every school is moving their curriculum online basically, and everybody's saying that the way to communicate homework is through sending emails to their teachers because they don't have a existing online system in place.
So I can elaborate a little bit more on that. I've got experience in AP classes and regular classes, and they do function a little bit differently, but essentially they do function off of email and Google Classroom, where everybody can see the assignments posted for the weeks. That's usually what's done for the normal classes, and it's pretty straightforward, and they have like general assignments that you have to complete by a certain time. What's more difficult is when we have AP classes that we have to still study for an AP test that happens regardless of what, is happening in the world. So, like, for instance, AP Physics has been, we've had online meetings where we have face cams and we talk face to face with the teacher, break up into groups, and just function like normal classes, like an everyday class. It's a lot more difficult, though. So, one nice thing is they did actually shorten the AP tests. They're modifying it, so hopefully that'll accommodate for the things that we've lost.
So it's like, I guess you guys are doing what we would call seminars, right? Online seminars?
For some classes, it just depends. The one that I've had the most seminars for is AP Physics. That's probably the most intense class that I'm taking this year, so that makes sense. Other classes, it's more self-done, like Engineering, Design, and Development. Will is actually in that class with me, and that is a class where we have a physical project that we work on throughout the entire year. And that is going to be experiencing some serious issues in the next coming weeks. Yeah, Will, you might want to. Do you have anything to add on that?
I'm a little bit concerned about our project at the moment, just because, like, everybody's worried about catching the virus, and we're all trying to avoid it. And I'm not sure if it'd be the best idea to, like, have 3 people meet up and then just work on the project,
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just in case, like, one of us had it dormant or something like that. And, like, to elaborate on the online classes thing, I really haven't had too many assignments, and I haven't done any, like, face cam things like Ethan has.
You were lucky.
At least, yeah.
It's kind of awkward.
I can't speak for the future. I'm still kind of uncertain on where Hanani is going with their curriculum, if they're going to keep it online or go back to school or what.
I really hope we don't live out the semester. I mean, this is senior year. We don't really want to, like, miss out on the last bit of senior year. That's like the most fun semester you ever have.
I remember when I was a senior in high school for sure. But yeah, I mean, Ethan, I know that you're in the club. I believe robotics, right?
Yeah, that's a whole nother story. I guess it's probably good to get a baseline. I don't want to talk too much, but basically, what the robotics program is it's a high school program for any one of the 4 years. It's named FIRST. Essentially, what it is it creates an environment where students and mentors work together to work on a robot that accomplishes a specific game. The field takes place on about the size of a basketball court, and it's 3 robots versus 3 robots in every match that's played. For instance, this year's game theme is Infinite Recharge. So you're throwing and shooting these foam balls into tall towers that have slotted holes in them, and then you're doing this continually throughout the entire game along with your team. You can play defense on the other side of the field. And then at the very end of the match, you have an opportunity to hang on a large pivoting clothes hanger. And then essentially, the more points that you get, whatever team gets the most points will win the match. You get extra points for, like, hanging on the clothes hanger. But if all 3 of your robots are hanging on the beam and it's balanced, you get even more points. So that kind of just gives you an idea of, like, the depth and, like, the depth of the game that you're playing.
It sure sounds very, complicated and very highly advanced. I mean, I've seen the video of what Ethan's talking about, and it's very impressive. It's like all of these robots are remote controlled, basically.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Their precision is, like, just absolutely astounding.
It is. It's pretty amazing what teams accomplish, and that comes back. We have a 6-week build period. So that's every day after school. We're staying until 8 or 9 o'clock, and then all day Saturday. And sometimes even more, depending on how the build season's going. So by the end of the season, you're putting in at least 90 hours. I usually get around 150. Some students end up with 300 hours logged for the team. And so, right before this whole pandemic hit, we had our first competition, which we had some issues on a robot. We did pretty poorly, but we had plans to do really well at the next one. And so all of us were really excited about our next competition. And then a couple days after that, we got an email saying that the entire season had been shut down. So our senior year robotics is pretty much just cut really short, sadly.
It's a bummer, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel bad for everyone on the team that put the commitment in. That I mean, everyone does. Whether you put in 100 hours, 300 hours, everyone has a tie to that team, and you're putting your life and your time and pretty much everything into it just for it to be canceled like that. It's pretty unfortunate, but
I hope that you guys are still staying in contact with each other during this time of quarantine.
I'd say we are. Most of us are pretty good friends. Anyway, so we have contact outside of school, but
Nice.
hopefully we'll resume. I don't know. Maybe we'll compete in an off season. We don't know yet. It's kind of everything's uncertain and up in the air
Well,
right
you
now.
know, the Japanese Olympics has been postponed, so it's not been canceled. There's a difference. So maybe it might happen in the same case.
Hopefully.
I guess it's just they just need to really find like an effective way to treat this disease. Besides supportive medicine. So like maybe a development of a vaccine. But of course, the realities of that prospect is a long ways away, unfortunately. So it's just everything's up in the air at the moment. But so Anisha, I know that you're from the UK. So anything going on over there?
Yeah, so the quarantine, obviously, social distancing, schools closed Friday last week. So,
Wow.
yeah, the government are beginning to do things about it now. Cafes are closed, even dentists are closed. So,
Really?
yeah.
Oh.
And the universities actually, this affects me because I applied for university for September 2020. I don't know when, I don't know if I'm going to start because the exams have actually cancelled. So people with conditional offers to universities won't know what to do because we don't know. The universities honestly don't know who to accept and who not to accept. So, yeah, it's quite an interesting situation.
So it's like you're not even sure at this point if you're going to be able to start or when you're going to start, right, Anisha?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, did they like give a refund or anything? I mean, I'm sure
No.
she must have paid, right?
No. Here in the UK, you don't actually pay for university until you're earning a certain amount of money, and 85% of graduates don't pay off the university debt. So
Oh,
there's
wow.
no
It sounds
problem.
amazing.
Yeah, you said it.
So is it like a
Yeah.
commission-based like tuition, or is that what you're saying, Anisha?
Basically, they give us a certain amount to actually uh, live off of, be able to pay the rent and everything there. And then after, slowly, we can pay it off. But yeah, it's quite simple here. So, I guess.
Yeah, a lot more simple than the educational system in America sometimes.
Oh yeah,
I'll say that.
it's even signing up for classes next year. Very convoluted. There's not a lot of clear direction, and it seems like to get things done, you really do have to contact a counselor, which at this current time is a little more difficult than it normally would be.
For sure. I can imagine. So, Andrew, you got any perspective on how this pandemic has affected you?
Hello? Yep. Alright, not
Yeah, hi.
really. Alright. Just checking if my mic works.
You're good, Andrew.
I mean, I guess the pandemic hasn't really affected me very much, considering that everything's really just normal for me. Despite school, I guess. That's canceled.
I guess you're happy about that, right, in a way? Well, you're still going to online classes, I'm sure.
I haven't had any online classes as... Yeah, I don't
Because it's
really...
spring break, right?
Oh yeah, it is spring break as of now.
Yeah, just remember that.
I was just gonna check if I have any homework or online classes, because I kind of forgot.
Yeah. So, how long do you think that this coronavirus epidemic is going to last at this point?
Until summer.
I
Or I should say the measures put into place to protect people from the coronavirus.
Well, I think if social distancing actually, if people are taking it seriously enough and it's actually being implemented and there's an actual change in our societal behavior, I think that there is a potential to clear this up much more quickly than like the potential for it to drag out if people are just going about their normal lives. I mean, it needs to return as soon as possible. Obviously, the economy isn't doing too hot right now, but I think that it has been improving. I've seen like marginal improvements. I mean, I think that the government's actions have been, they haven't been perfect. Obviously, what government's acting perfect all of the time, but I think that we're very fortunate that they are making attempts and getting things done, and
I mean, I know it seems a little jarring that these interventions are being put into place, in a society as capitalist as America is. Typically, America is a country that values individual liberties, and something like a stay-at-home order is definitely an example of government intervention to, frankly, a scale that I've never seen in my life, or my parents, they've never seen anything like this before.
I totally agree.
All their years that they've been here in America. And I just think that sometimes there is, if it's a temporary measure, I think it is necessary for the time being, because ultimately the government's role is to protect the welfare and the health and the interests of its people. And as civilians, I think we should all do our part in cooperating with the government, because this disease by itself is already such an uncertain and challenging thing. And I think that the most that we can do is just to cooperate with the government and to make things to follow along, just to see if, because honestly, I'm not even sure if they know if this is an effective way to combat the coronavirus. They're just kind of testing the waters. I mean, it's not like any of us has ever faced a pandemic of this on this level.
Yeah, I agree. I actually haven't looked up too much of the data, but the H1N1, the swine flu, I'm not sure if that got bigger than this. I don't really recall it. I was pretty young at the time, I think. But
Sir Wednick, you're the biochemist of the group. You got any?
Aspiring med chemist.
Aspiring med chemist. So yeah, he's the an aspiring pharmaceutical engineer, right?
Yeah, a little bit of all that.
A little bit of all that.
Work in progress.
You think America's doing a good job with developing the drugs so far?
I'm sorry, there's a ceremony or something going on. I think people are celebrating about the NHS. So outside my bedroom window right now, I can hear crowds cheering. You can hear it.
Oh wow!
There's literally crowds cheering outside my room.
Wow.
Are they just marching in the streets?
No, they're just clapping outside their houses.
Oh wow. NHS, that stands for National Health Insurance, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Did they pass a new initiative?
I'm not sure. I think it's just as gratitude, but I'll have to ask my mum afterwards.
For sure.
Literally everyone down the street is cheering.
For sure, yeah, that sounds great.
This is something out of a movie. This is never happened before. It's so weird.
And what a coincidence that it happens during our very first podcast.
Yeah.
Anything can happen.
I think it's finished now. That was really unexpected.
For sure. But I'm glad we got this on tape, though.
Yeah, it comes through well on the microphone as well.
Yeah. I think regarding initiatives, I think the U.S. just passed a stimulus package.
I did see that.
$2 trillion, I believe.
Yes. It passed the Senate. It's going to the House now.
Okay, so it's still in Congress overall. It's still in the process of being reviewed, I assume.
Yeah.
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 Wait for that $1,000 in your bank account.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I'm sure all of you know of Andrew Yang, who was a presidential candidate for
Yes.
the Democratic Party.
Yes.
Yeah. I believe this is it's a reflection of his idea of the universal basic income, basically, because I think he was the first one to really champion universal basic income in terms of politics.
He does. Yes, he. That was his kind of his driving force. It has. I don't know if he heard. I don't know if he actually spoke about this personally, but he. That is actually implemented in Alaska right now.
It is, yeah.
Which I think is very cool. I mean, obviously Alaska is very different than the rest of, the states, but the fact that it got passed too, and that's in a conservative state too.
Yeah,
So.
it's surprising, but when I was looking up Andrew Yang's videos, I did notice that he had a lot of support and a lot of positive comments from people who consider themselves conservatives or are Republican, online. Like even Fox News featured him multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to get too political here, but I do lean right, and I am actually in support of Andrew Yang. So
Yeah,
definitely.
I felt like he was one of those candidates that could kind of unify both parties, so to speak, because I think if there's something that most of us can probably agree on, it's that, well, there's a lot of division and polarization between both parties, as of currently. But I'm happy that, one of the bright things to come out of this pandemic is I think, the country is more unified. I know that there's a lot of squabbling going on in, politics and everything still, but at least, they're coming together and they're actually getting something done.
I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think ultimately a huge lesson that the world could learn from this is it takes a monumental global threat, like a pandemic, that threatens our species in order for people to really understand that unity really makes us so much stronger as a species. And it's very unfortunate because I think people should understand that division is not always the best answer. In fact, it separates us because it doesn't allow us to join minds and efforts to combat a challenge.
That's a very good way to put it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for the coronavirus, I think the best thing that we can all do, even if we don't have the skills necessary, the most practical skills, is to unify and, be in support of one another. These are not times for us to be blaming other people. This is not the time to be bickering, and this is most certainly not the time to be scheming for one's own profit. I'm just kind of talking about people who decide to price gouge, for the sake of it.
Yeah.
But we've been doing all of that before this whole pandemic happened, and I really believe that division now would only make us weaker as a species.
Exactly, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, I think in order to get stronger as a global community, it means basically cooperating, working together, and yeah, I think you summed it up well.
I know you wrote a speech on this, but we'll present that in another video. But, it's a great speech, honestly. Brilliant, in fact.
Thank you.
Yeah, you all should hear it when, the video comes out. But certainly, she's a great writer.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Writing is
Yeah,
not...
and then
sorry.
I guess another recommendation that I have, just for the world in general, is I think, people should stop panicking. I don't think that there's ever a time for it. There's never really a time for fear, because fear only inhibits our potential and our stamina. So if something that is inevitable or is termed inevitable is going to happen, frankly, it's going to happen whether or not you wish it would just go away. You can't just, it's not something that you can just will away, this disease. So in a way, I think fear is like a delusion of reality. And I think that it is imperative for everybody to be strong and to be cautious and be prepared to do all that you can, because remaining stagnant with fear and paranoia, frankly, it's basically like paralyzing yourself.
Exactly, because worrying doesn't change what's already predetermined.
Right.
And it creates issues like with the whole toilet paper thing. I mean,
Yeah.
once it gets out that, people are stockpiling, the next guy thinks, well, if they're stockpiling, then there might be a limited supply. I've got to go stockpile, and then
It's like a
so on.
chain
It's a chain reaction of
about the toilet paper thing, I actually did read an interesting article, frankly, or people have been telling me that some of the reasons why people are so fervent on stocking up on toilet paper in general, you would think that, like, they would be stocking up on other supplies that seem more important, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole joke behind it. But one of the main reasons is because there's a psychology behind it. So apparently, because toilet paper takes up a lot of space on the shelves, people think that if they acquire like toilet paper, that they have a lot of items because they've got an item that takes up a lot of space.
That's actually hilarious.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a professional term for this, but it's just very fascinating to see like this sort of psychology play out in real life. Yeah, and then the second thing is I think a lot of people are doubling the use of toilet paper as tissue paper and cleaning paper. So it has like multiple uses. I don't know if it's as effective as items that were designated for those purposes, but it seems like that a lot of people are using toilet paper in multiple ways.
Well, I mean, it is a cleaning paper in a sense already.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I think that has to do with it too. I mean, people think it's just. I think another thing too is just like, for whatever reason, people fixate on toilet paper just because it's people associate with that with just kind of like I guess sanitation overall, just a normal life, and people want to cling to a normal life, especially when a normal life as we know it is being disrupted right now.
It's a very good point. Sir Wennick. Yeah. I think that it takes an abnormal time for us to really be introspective and to reevaluate like the existing measures and the existing things that we deal with to really understand like what it is that could change and what it is that has the potential to be better.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, there's a reason why this is happening. And even if it doesn't feel like it now, I feel like we will, in the future, benefit from this. We will look back and be like, we're actually thankful that happened. Like,
Right.
How World War II led to major technological development.
Right.
This might actually lead to major social development, unity, overcoming discrimination, and things like that. So that's what I'm hoping anyway. It might be a bit idealistic to say that, but I feel like we should all kind of have that mindset of something good will come about of this.
Exactly, because the thing about this that makes this so unique is this is a global threat that is a threat to humanity. It's a human crisis, frankly, across the entire globe. But the funny thing is, this is like one of the few times when I think no human being has a grasp or like no human has the ability to control the outcome of this disease or how bad it's going to get. The disease is not alive. It doesn't read intentions. It does not read race, age, or beliefs. It can affect anybody. So I really think that this disease is the perfect catalyst to show that we are all actually just human beings, like underneath everything. And we're all part of the same species.
Yeah, it's beautifully said.
Thank you. Yeah. I guess another thing that I do want to talk about is I think that something that the world could learn from this is I'm hoping that every nation on the earth should make healthcare the number one priority after this event. Because as evident like with the economy right now, there's basically no economy and no movement if there is no health. Health is basically like life. So if there's no life, nothing else really matters. So in my opinion, I just think that healthcare should be the focus of economic investment for all countries of the world, especially like the superpowers that are leaders in the world that pride themselves in being like examples. There's always room for scientific development given how we don't even have an effective vaccine for this pandemic. Like healthcare is just an area that has tons of potential. It could spawn a lot of jobs and countless opportunities for research and just limitless opportunities to learn and to grow. And that's what science is. It's growing on empirical evidence.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You've probably been hearing this on the news, but there's a major shortage of medical equipment in the US for the coronavirus pandemic, like ventilators. They don't have enough of that. They don't have enough of like antiviral face masks, which has like forced hospitals to kind of acquire and attain them from unconventional sources like automakers or 3D printing companies. I mean, it's really cool, but it just kind of goes to show that like the medical community, or I should say healthcare production more specifically, is not that strong in America. And I think a part of that is because a lot of that production has been outsourced to other countries. You know, the fact that we don't have, or I should say we are having trouble getting the necessary medical equipment. I'm not going to say that outsourcing is bad for all industries, but at least for healthcare, I think, in my honest opinion, that we should internalize healthcare production so that it is as strong as possible. I mean, I think that most people can agree that like healthcare rationing is such a horrific thing to resort to. I mean, it's a violation of the Hippocratic Oath, which consists of do no harm.
Well, I mean, like you said, internalizing our healthcare to our own, you know, within local communities, I think that's important. And after all of this is over, I think if we take what we've seen and we actually learn from this situation, I think there's a possibility that if this happens again, we'll have it down. We'll have it stopped before it gets this big, because once it gets to a certain point, you can only really slow it down. You can't prevent it.
Right. Just to be clear for all our viewers out there who might not be familiar with what healthcare rationing means, it's basically when hospitals don't have enough medical equipment to treat all the patients, so they have to start making decisions such as allocating resources to patients who have the best chance of surviving a certain disease.
Oh, that's quite extreme.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you might have heard on the news, but like in Italy, they're already putting healthcare rationing to practice. Like a lot of old people are just essentially being left to die because they don't have enough medical equipment to treat them. And, you know, the doctors think that they don't have as high of a chance to survive as perhaps like a young person.
I think that's a violation of human rights. I think that's morally wrong.
Right.
And yeah, like, what is that saying about the society that we're living in? It's just the way that we're treating people who have lived a long life. You know, old people, like, I feel like society, we should have more respect for the elderly.
We should, definitely. I mean, filial piety, I think, is a very important thing that a lot of people don't typically embrace. And, you know, to respect your elders, you know, because they are the persons who kind of paved the way for you to have the life that you have today. I really believe that people should really honor and cherish older adults.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, this might be a bit of an optimistic note, but there's been a lot of talk about acquiring antibodies via blood plasma transfusion. In the absence of a vaccine, I think that this could potentially be a life-saving form of treatment for the time being that seems to be available. Of course, more research has to be done just to make sure that the process is safe. From what is understood of it so far, people who recover from the coronavirus will gain antibodies, which essentially grants them immunity to the disease. So, through the donation of plasma from these survivors, antibodies can be introduced to other people. This way, we included a link in the description box to an article that has more on this topic. So, anyway, anything else that anybody wants to add?
Let's hope it over. Hope this thing's over pretty soon.
Yeah. I know it doesn't feel like it, right? I mean, like, it's just like we've been talking for like 10 minutes, but actually, no, we've been like talking 40 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Honestly, this feels like the longest week ever. I'm at a point where I'm already forgetting what day it is, and then I realize, oh wait, it's only Thursday of like this first week of.
Hey, it's Thursday? I thought it was like Tuesday.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Ooh, Doom Eternal
Yeah.
can only last so long. Ironic enough.
I mean, I guess, like, you know, a lot of people are really just dying to go outside. I mean, even, like, taking walks and stuff, at least we're allowed to do that here where I'm at.
Yeah, even taking a drive. The other day I just went for a drive out in country roads, and that was really nice. Just with the sunroof open, just being able to go somewhere and take my mind off of being inside all the time. And
I guess if this is a relevant point, but I think that if you have been watching the news, you probably might have heard that there's a lot of young adults who are in Florida, like going out to beaches and gathering in large crowds, like directly, I think, defying the recommendation of the government and the CDC.
I did see that. That is worrying.
Right, because I think the reason why we have these initiatives being passed, like state by state, is because the government is trying, or I should say the leading healthcare organizations in America and the government are trying to implement measures that can only work if all the citizens, or a majority of the citizens, follow through with it.
I feel like the fact that everybody's going to Florida, especially, because that's really bad, because there's a lot of older people in Florida that go there
Right.
to retire.
Mm-hmm.
And since they're so vulnerable to the virus, I feel like it's just so much worse that everybody's just defying, and just going there anyways, gathering in large crowds.
We have a lot of regular customers who actually have summer homes in Florida, and they're telling us they're having to stay with relatives because lots of people are invading the beaches of Florida because what a coincidence that this disease hit during the time of what most people would consider as spring break, and we all know what that means in terms of college terms, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just think that ultimately, I understand, I get it, people don't want to stay in their homes, we all have our individual liberties, but I do think that if it's just a temporary measure that the government is doing, for our behalf, I think that it's okay to be sacrificing a little bit of your time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the sooner that, we can cooperate, stay inside, wait this thing out, it'll benefit us all.
For sure, for sure. So thank you, everybody, for listening to our very first podcast from the Starry Panel, and I would like to give a shout out to my very good friend from Lebanon, Nizar Namer, who designed the logo for this channel and also made this awesome backdrop for us to use in our podcast. Nizar, dude, seriously, you rock. If you would like to hear more and have more conversations with us or reach out to us, you can certainly do so by following us on social medias. Anyway, I hope that all of you enjoyed our first podcast, and we're sincerely hoping that you will be interested enough to join back in the next one. So see you next time, and remember to leave lots of comments because we love conversations. That's one thing that we cannot get enough of. This is Starry, going out.
Bye.
So Wetnick signing off.
Bye-bye.
Bye.